Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Abundo. Welcome to this webinar on ocean system innovations in marine health, climate resilience, and renewable energy, brought to you by the Emerging Areas Energy Sector team of the Asian Development Bank as part of its knowledge sharing series. This knowledge event is the 10th of a series being organized by this team to look at frontier technologies and integrated solutions to foster and drive innovation in policy and operational issues, catalyze thought leadership and future looking bank wide initiatives for future business, collaborating across different departments for innovative solutions, identifying and developing knowledge and flagship events to mobilize co-financing for developing member countries towards sustainable development. So without further ado, may I invite the Director for Emerging Areas Energy Sector of the Asian Development Bank, Dr. Cindy Cisneros Tiangco, for her opening remarks. Cindy, please.
Thank you so much, Mike. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all. It is my honor to welcome you to this webinar on ocean system innovations in marine health, climate resilience, and renewable energy. And as Mike mentioned, this is the 10th in our series of Emerging Areas knowledge sharing. Today, we highlight the importance of the shared responsibility to safeguard our oceans while advancing sustainable development and innovation. We will be exploring concrete projects and case studies from Southeast Asia, Palau, and across the Pacific, initiatives that demonstrate how marine health, sustainability, and innovation can converge to deliver real and lasting impact. The health of our oceans is fundamental to our collective future. They regulate the Earth's climate, generate most of the oxygen we breathe, and are home to extraordinary biodiversity. For millions of people, particularly in island and coastal communities, the oceans are a primary source of food, livelihoods, and cultural identity. Yet these ecosystems are under unprecedented strain. Plastic pollution continues to choke marine habitats, overfishing threatens the balance of species, and climate change intensifies risks through warming waters, rising seas, and more frequent extreme weather events. Against this sobering backdrop, however, we are also witnessing a wave of innovation and collaboration. Across the region, inspiring initiatives are emerging that point to new pathways for protecting and restoring marine environments. Sustainable aquaculture practices are showing how food production can align with ecological balance. Marine monitoring technologies are equipping policymakers and practitioners with the data they need to make informed and timely decisions. Moreover, ocean based renewable energy solutions, such as ocean thermal energy conversion, are revealing the potential of the seas not only as ecosystems to be protected, but also as sources of sustainable power for communities. This session brings together a unique mix of experts from the private sector and applied research. I'm also pleased to see joining us in the audience colleagues from the ADB and our developing member countries and other partners. Our purpose is not only to showcase these pioneering examples, but also to foster a dialogue that bridges across sectors and geographies. By learning from these real world experiences, we can identify what is scalable, what is transferable, and how we might collectively accelerate ocean positive action across our region and beyond. I invite you to approach today's discussion with both curiosity and determination. Let us ask how these approaches might be adapted in different contexts and how partnerships across sectors can amplify their impact. Our oceans are central to climate stability, food security, and sustainable economies. We need to protect it to the best of our abilities, and innovation will be one of our strongest allies in this endeavor. With this, let me thank you once again for joining us, and I look forward to a rich and inspiring exchange of knowledge and ideas. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much, Cindy, for that wonderful opening remarks to launch us into this webinar. So without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker. and his topic for today. So we have as part of this ocean system innovations, we look at different technologies, and satellite imagery and AI are transforming water quality and pollution monitoring across Asia and the Pacific. Dr. James Doherty will speak to us about from space to shore satellite and AI insights for this water resilience in Southeast Asia. He is the CEO and co-founder of the Earthshot nominated Planetics, which develops data-driven solutions for water quality monitoring and ocean health. With a PhD in astronomy, law degrees from Cambridge and Oxford, and fellowship from science to data science, James brings a unique multidisciplinary perspective to environmental innovation. Previously a commercial lawyer at Evershed Sutherland, he now leverages satellite technology and artificial intelligence to address critical global water quality challenges. So, without further ado, may I ask James to please share his screen and start his segment of this webinar session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike. Let me just make sure. May I just check that you're able to see my slides okay?
Yep.
Fantastic. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Mike, and I couldn't have asked for a better introduction and to be teed up for this discussion through Cindy's introduction as well. It's a real pleasure to be here. Very grateful for the invite from ADB, and yeah, really excited today to talk about this topic. And I'll be covering how space-based technologies can really support a thriving and healthy ocean. So we are, as Mike mentioned, a UK-based company, Earthshot nominated, and we use satellites and AI really to track various aspects of ocean and water health. And our mission is to use this intelligence really to promote a safe, stable, and sustainable ocean. Water is undoubtedly our planet's most critical resource. When we look at the ocean, we see water covering 70% of the surface of the Earth. As mentioned by Cindy, this is a primary food source for billions of people. It absorbs a quarter of the CO2 that we produce. And for every 2 breaths that we take, we can thank the ocean for one of them because it's generating 50% of the oxygen on the planet. But it is coming under increasing pressure from human-made problems. So millions of tons of plastic pollution flowing into the ocean every year. We are losing biodiversity at vast rates. And indeed, there's significant damage being caused by climate-driven phenomena as well. The challenge with the ocean, though, is that if we want to manage it and look after it more effectively, we need to be able to measure it. But this is really challenging because it's so big and it's so dynamic. Traditional methods for monitoring water bodies often involve manual surveys, so putting people or putting vessels into the water. But these approaches, while extremely important, do have their limitations. So they are geographically limited, they're quite intermittent, can be very expensive, and can put people into dangerous situations. And because of these limitations, it essentially leaves very large data gaps in our understanding around the ocean. To address this problem, we use satellite data, and there's a wonderful synergy between satellites and monitoring of the ocean. This is because satellites are able to take pictures of the entire surface of the Earth on a daily basis now. So we have a data source which can actually cover vast swathes of large water bodies. This obviously becomes a big data exercise, and so we have to automate the analysis of that imagery. And to do that, we use AI and computer vision based models. The insights which we're able to gather, we distribute either through web-based platforms or through APIs which can plug in to stakeholders' existing systems. And ultimately this allows us and allows access for the ocean community to a global water monitoring service, which we're building um, in partnership with some fantastic organizations. So the sorts of use cases to which this technology can be applied include the detection of plastic debris in the ocean, and this is what I will focus on a lot today. However, we can also monitor and forecast harmful algal blooms, which can cause a lot of damage to fish stocks and to drinking water. To monitor aquaculture sites for sustainable practices, and also to map blue carbon environments. So here we're thinking about seagrasses and mangroves, etc. I'll focus mostly on plastic debris in this talk, but very happy to touch on those other topics during the Q&A. So what's the real value then that the use of satellite data is bringing? One is that it's geographically unlimited, as I've mentioned, so we can really monitor large areas, and we can do that frequently as well with daily to weekly revisits from satellites. We can measure change over time, so we can be taking these images both going forward, but also we have access to satellite archive data, which can stretch backwards 10 to 20 years. So that really allows us to establish baselines, to understand phenomena and pollution, to be able to plan data-driven interventions, and then to measure the efficacy of those interventions. So we get this whole kind of lifeline of interventions which we can make. Ultimately, we're producing actionable insights that allows us to take impactful actions, and then this data which we're gathering can start to align with regulation and reporting requirements under a whole range of international regulations, which are being formulated around the ocean. So in a couple of big numbers, we're geographically unlimited in terms of monitoring. The frequency of monitoring can be 30 times more frequent than using ground-based measurements. This can aid the efficiency of cleanup operations by a factor of 20, and all this can be done generally at an order of magnitude lower cost as well than to traditional monitoring methods. So to consider the first use case for this technology, then we'll consider how it's being used for mapping plastic pollution. This is an image of the ocean off the coast of the UAE. There's not too much to see there with the naked eye, at least, and this is what you would see from the Sentinel-2 satellite, which is a European Space Agency satellite. This image is in the optical, so it's essentially what we do see and what we would see with our eyes, but it's hard really to extract particular features. However, we have trained algorithms to recognize accumulations of debris in these types of pictures, and those models are then able to identify these types of long slicks of debris in the ocean. To look at those in a little more context, this is one of these debris slicks off the coast of Ghana. We know along this coastline there are multiple poorly managed waste sites. So when we see these sorts of long stringy features, really we can know with a fairly high degree of confidence that there is plastic floating in these accumulations. There will also be non-anthropogenic material in there as well, so things like sargassum and like driftwoods. And these features can be extremely long. They form along natural barriers within the ocean, along ocean fronts, where you might have changes in temperature, changes in salinity, which just create these conditions where you get lots of material accumulating like you see here. And this offers a real opportunity, actually, because before this material disperses, and while it is in this kind of more dense form, it's an opportunity to go and collect it using ocean cleaning technologies. Interestingly, you can also see material outflowing from a river just from the city of Accra in the bottom left of this image as well. And we know 80% of plastic entering the ocean is doing so through rivers. So once we have these images, we can start to look at time series, as I mentioned. And this is a river off the north coast of Northern Ireland, and it's a time series of data just showing debris flows over a period of a couple of years. We can start to stack those images and really identify hotspots then, where you're getting a lot of flow of debris or accumulations of debris over time. And these hotspots are really important to know because it's where we can make our most impactful interventions. Now we can start to normalize this data and to look at it over large geographic regions. So here we've divided the UK up, the UK's coastline up along different counties and different countries. We've normalized that data over a 5-year period to see where the most plastic debris has been identified. And then we've basically converted that information into a score, a series of scores, so that decision makers can look at this map, they can look at the scores, and they can have insights and make fast decisions, whether that's around where to make interventions or how to formulate policies. Now, obviously, the ocean is a dynamic environment, and these features of debris don't stand still. They move with current and wind, and we have models which predict that movement both forwards to identify where the material may move to and flow to, but also backwards to attribute where it has come from. And this is really cool when we look at this as an ensemble. So here you'll recognize is an image of Singapore. And here the red dots are showing the flow of debris in the ocean, but the orange dots, importantly, are showing where the debris is making landfall. And again, these are areas where you are, best advised to have beach cleanups and the like deployed. So very quickly then, looking at how we package these capabilities together to look at debris monitoring around the Philippines. The Philippines does have waste management challenges with large volumes of waste entering into water bodies every year. And this is just a short video then showing, so we will switch to an image of Manila Bay shortly and just showing some of these capabilities and the monitoring of debris in Manila Bay. So here we see red slicks of debris over a period of a year or two in 2022 and 23. We see this heat map function and see these accumulations where these accumulations of debris are building up. And we can also see how debris is flowing across Manila Bay. And as discussed before, it's really important to identify the areas of the coastline highest at risk so you know where to make those interventions. So here we can see the coast divided into different chunks, and we can look at those risk metrics on a kind of per year basis. We're also pushing this model upstream to identify waste in rivers, and this is extremely important for being able to make those interventions before this material reaches the ocean environment. Now we also, as well as being able to understand where to make the most impactful interventions in the environment, we also look at how this has impact on things like public health. So here that we know that there are strong linkages between plastic pollution and diseases such as typhoid and dengue fever due to their strong relationship between plastic pollution and water pollution. So here we have done a piece of work which is looking at disease rates, which are shown by the bars on this chart, against an environmental index, which is essentially showing the health of the environment. And here the lower scores of this index, which are shown on the green line, basically show that degrading environmental conditions over time and we see a corresponding increase in disease rates over time. So with this sort of information and looking at this in a really focused geographic way, we can start to identify regions which are most in need of intervention based on their environmental conditions, but then you can potentially roll out things like inoculations or vaccine programs in order to have kind of maximum impact and save as many lives as possible. So the users of this technology span businesses, governments, NGOs, and we're working with a range of cleanup operators, government agencies, ports and businesses. And we're really looking forward to rolling this technology into Southeast Asia so that it can really start making an impact on the ground, in the Philippines and beyond. This is our team, as mentioned, we're Oxford based. And we would be absolutely delighted to pick up conversation following this presentation and to see if we can assist and support efforts in Southeast Asia with this technology. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, James. Very, very interesting topic and very, very apt as well, as there's been a blue wave recently. So for our participants, if you have questions, please key it in the Q&A or in the chat. We will have moderated question and answer segment towards the end of the webinar after all the speakers have spoken. Thank you very much, James. So may I call on our next speaker to please prepare, turn on his video, and also put up his slides. Our next speaker will be talking about historical and transitions of economy of Palau to guide current development practices, looking at the globalization in Oceania, the story of Palau. Our speaker is Christopher Kitalo, who is a researcher with the Pacific Academic Institute for Research. Christopher applies his expertise in pharmacology to Palauan traditional plant medicines. This includes identifying plant species and exploring the origin and distribution of these plants, which results in the phytochemical, pharmacological, and clinical assessments of these herbal medicines. He is also the vice president at the Palau Community College. Christopher is focused on developing capacity in the Pacific to enhance the region's community health and natural resources through cultural and modern scientific research. He is also passionate about training young members of the scientific community. So without further ado, may I ask Christopher to please proceed with his presentation. Thank you.
Can you guys see? I just see my screen right now.
I think it's not yet shared, Chris.
Hold on. Share screen. Is that good?
Yes, but we can see your slide. I think you may need to do presentation mode. Thank you. There you go.
Cool.
All right.
Is that better?
Yep.
All right, guys. I have 300 slides, as I told before. Just kidding now. There's a couple. But it's just going to be a short story, sort of intro of Palau for the first. So it'll probably be sort of the same for a lot of the Pacific Islands. So this is what will be our sort of traditionally conserved site in Palau. It's a no entry under Bud. So I put that as our first slide. But Palau is right next to you guys in the Philippines, and everybody can just see on the map. All the map people can see it right there. And that'll come into play when we talk about the trade routes. So it's along the Kyushu-Palau Ridge. Apparently I have to speak louder. There's people in the office that can't hear me. So Palau is right there along the Kyushu-Palau Ridge, which is important for some geopolitical relations with Japan. These are some of the rock. The island is a sort of a salt island. The salt island with these uplifted limestone structures. Beautiful for tourism. This is that undercut when I was doing some ecological transits throughout the islands. These are the soil types. Average is quite acidic, and some natural vegetation types: rock island, strand, limestone forest, mangrove forests, and on the larger island you have some wetlands, really small little lakes, but the biggest in Micronesia, and lowland forests, riparian forests along the river, interior forests, and then the savanna. And this leads into sort of the human component. So there's all these terraced areas which are looked at as human-induced vegetation practices and kind of looks at older populations of Palau, putting it around 150 to 200,000 people. And these human-influenced things are like homesteads, like Masay and Masosan, and then all these farms, which are more modern. Tapioca was introduced during the Spanish times, but has become a staple in Palau. And these are some of the nipa palms used for roofing. This is sort of the subsistent traditional rendition of Palau's habitat pre-Western contact, with the rivers and taro patches along in mangrove forest as protection and the canoes as a sort of path there. And kind of it leads into this transition of subsistence economy of our past into this globalized economy. And this is kind of where things change a little bit. So I think this is quite well known, the globalization history, the age of discovery, globalization, all the way to our digital goods now, marketing. But one of the missing stories I kind of talk about a little bit more is the trade across the Indo-Pacific, Malaysia, Austronesian, Polynesian, and Micronesian trades. And this is the Southeastern money bead trade, which makes up a huge component of our traditional trade economy here, and accounts for a lot of the earlier contact trade with metal and cloth. So these are the specific trade route. This was the Beche de Mer and copra trade through Javanese and Chinese ships. So this was really established prior to English contact, which is the first sort of recorded thing. So it kind of delineates that Palau was a site of trade along because of its juxtaposition. When there was southwestern winds, people would rotate up there with their trade materials. And it's well documented in some of Keats' discovery. This is Captain Wilson's crew member, who, when they met the chiefs of Palau, they already had cloth, metal, and they were a bit obese. So, and then it came to the Spanish. After English contact, there was Spanish sort of claimed the area, and the copra trade was more focused. But most of the colonies most of the focus was in Guam and the Philippines. And then after the Germans purchased the islands, they focused a lot more on the copra production. And this is just one of their marketing campaigns, looking at coconut oil as king, superior to animal oils, as you can see the animals looking up to the coconut tree. And it was forced and encouraged to plant a lot of this copra. And then Japanese had just after World War I had taken over the area and pushed, I think, the most productive, as we would say, for export during the Palau things. And this is the whole regions, the Nanyo Taisho, which would be the pre-World War II colonies in the Pacific, and Palau was one of the capitals. And then World War II came around. One of the bloodiest battles was in the Pacific. A lot of the areas razed, and you can see this is Peleliu, where a lot of people visit. And then there was the rebuilding during the US Trust Territory times, and then what I call the beginning of dependency. And then there was independence, and this was their search for sustainable development and self-sustainability. And then our interdependence, as I call it, with our compact funds, looking at Western medicine dependency impacts, and just reliance on imports. So I put this sort of timeline with the globalization timeline because the majority of our economic, quote unquote, economic development was tied in with other countries' developments, are usually the colonizers. So there was no point in time when we were developing our own industry, except during the sustainable period, taro farms and sustainable economy. And then I just kind of key into international, like globalization is interactions, but it also includes these cultural practices. So we can see that long chain of trade where the first step was us with each other creating our economies, and then this trade based economy all the way to where we are now. And how do we enhance this globalization, right? All of these connections and trading partners have allowed us to access information, obtain commodities, and kind of get us keyed into the TikTok vibe, the social media thing, and students and local people being more into what people have in the Western and Asiatic societies. But there's those issues that come across, inequalities, educational inequalities, and crisis due to this sort of cultural degradation and devolution. And I kind of pull into that devolution structure because we want to see, is it important to development or this sort of cultural revolution that people are having in the islands? But this devolution was sort of the knowledge of living things decreasing because of that globalized education model where it's not diversified as similarly we would look in biology. This is one of the studies that was done in Pohnpei, a Micronesian island, but it's kind of indicative across the region. These are skills and tactics that are known, and the surveys were done or people were asked how much they knew. And obviously, it's across the region, it's the same, the decrease of knowledge. But what we did is we also looked at the health components of it. And we saw that there was this big dip, right, between the loss of knowledge and the health of the population. So then this is obviously, as we mentioned before, this transition to diet structure. This is a study looking at food supply chain coming into the islands, and the consumption patterns were 20 times the size that the island could produce. So it was unsustainable production. So as you can see here, the traditional diets were shifted over to imported foods, and we'll get into that a little bit more. And this came, of course, first world, these NCDs and non-communicable disease structures were looked at mainly as first world diseases until kind of pulled up the data sets and introduced that the top of the top 50 countries, the majority of them were island nations. As you can see in red, that's Palau. This is old data, but actually we've moved up on that list. And in 2011, there was an executive order declaring a state of emergency on these diseases. So I kind of, as I was doing sort of my dissertation work and working with the medical people here, looked on the sources of these healthcare problems. A lot of it was symptoms-based treatments as opposed to prevention. And then the cost of therapies, because we were looking at Western medicine, rehydration packets, all these things. And then lifestyles, as we saw the shift from subsistence production, office-based work, and then relying on these high sugar, high fat diets. And you kind of look at this, there's correlation between the issues of globalization and health, which is quite obvious. So you can see the identity crisis to the degradation, all these other fun things. And I never say that there's a bad or a good thing, right? Globalization is just the same as anything else. It's a tool, and it's how we use a tool. I say it's a knife. You could use it to stab your brother in the back, or you can make sashimi and feed your family. Before we go into it, and as we're searching for this model, as they mentioned, that my background is pharmacology, really focused in the health world. I wanted to look at the origin of health, and it's whole, right? In the Old English, whole, state of being free from illness. So integration seemed to be the best component of it by taking all parts and making them whole. So seems like it'd be the obvious approach, not throwing anything out, but making sure we used our old knowledge, but we also understood the importance of new technologies. So in order to bridge this gap between these sort of practices that were kind of, I guess, fighting each other, we looked at techniques to validate these. So we started looking at local medicines, did a primary healthcare manual, did a survey on what people were using for diabetes, one of the main non-communicable diseases, and then did published in your normal Western things, went through and did a clinical trial for a local medicine for treating diabetes. So this was sort of that integrative approach, making sure we understood that traditional means were important, but making sure they were put on that sort of modern subset. So the cultural identity goes back in there. How do we redefine that? How do we understand that? And I said once in a talk with a model United Nations, I said culture is dynamic, and there's two guarantees. The death, and usually people say taxes, but I say change. And if we're not able to change, we'll end up the latter, the previous. So I said with culture, we have to make sure that we're adapting to the environment that we're
think we may have lost Chris. Maybe we can wait for him. Connection is lost. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Would you like to
Maybe.
entertain the question? Yeah.
Yeah, we should probably. There's a question here for James from Anne. I think for planetics, how deep can planetics tracking technology cover the Earth's oceans? Is there potential to extend or assistance / collaborate beyond your present concerns, which are plastics, etc.? For example, accurately identifying crash sites and shipwrecks. So, James, would you like to address that? Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. Great question. Yeah, certainly there's a wide range of possibilities to how you can apply satellite technology in the ocean space, and there's a whole range of potential use cases. I highlighted 4 in our presentation, but certainly there's many others, from tracking oil spills to looking at various aspects of the maritime industry. We are limited in how deep we can monitor, because the ocean and the water is absorbing the light which we're using to observe. So our kind of state of the art at the moment is measuring things like seagrass down to 20 meters. So if we're looking at, potentially shipwrecks submerged, hundreds of meters under the surface of the water, that would be beyond current capabilities. But you could certainly look at using different sensor types as well. So we mainly use optical data as discussed, but potentially using radar data as well. Could provide better penetration for different use cases. So great question, but there remains certain limitations because of physics as to how deep we can actually monitor.
Thank you so much there, James. Yeah, that's very helpful. So I guess I'm not sure if we have Chris back yet, but in the interest of time, yeah, okay, there you go. Chris, are you back?
Hey guys, sorry about that.
Perfect. So we'll just ask you to
Technology.
share a screen
I think it
again.
was telling me my talk was too boring.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? I'm getting cut off. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Am I continuing or?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, I'll try to make it quicker before I get kicked off again. I'll turn off my video just in case. All right, so I don't know where I got cut off, but basic point was we looked at integrative approaches in the medicine sector and understood that food and daily activity was the most important thing. So we did studies looking at where food was coming from and how to get things, like find the solution for that. Okay, cool. Then looked at food supply and production and understood that, Palau had some of the smallest subsistence production and had been heavily dependent on these imported products. More. These are just a bunch, obviously you have to repeat it. But one of the major things I think that led to that was our heavy dependence on tourism. So a lot of people in the community were working in the tourist industry as opposed to in the subsistence production and production area. So it's much easier to get restaurants. If you come to Palau, it looks modern and all that stuff, but you can see that production had dropped out, as you saw in the last slides. So learning from sort of the past, like Lurai, like looking at the past and seeing how things were managed. Some of these TEK, as people use now, traditional ecological knowledge, has been brought back to try to get some of these upland or like taro patches revived. And this is actually a project at ADB as well. So looking at food security, cultural identity, merging them and making sure things were not, going in the direction it was one of the main goals that we looked at when I joined the agriculture and aquaculture section at the college. And we realized that the taro production was reducing, and there were much less subsistence farmers and fishing compared to other islands. And this was probably heavily influenced by, of course, the size of the population and the amount of tourists coming in. So we looked at some of the main things that are important to society, taro and aquaculture for fish supply chain. So these were vamped up. This has been ongoing projects to the region through USDA, but getting numbers there, making sure that there was some economic component pushing it, and private sector development was kind of the goal. So getting people healthy, but also having adjuvant therapy structures was most important, making sure there was economy tied into that sort of cultural component, and making sure people were integrating not just the old food structures, but bringing in new ideas and understanding how to maximize production on the land that we're in. So this is what we learned from Japanese times, focusing on their production booms, looking at different crops and reviving the soil types, right? So these were the challenges, soil types. So getting and understanding those things was important. The acidity was hard to make production up, and land was used as you know, there was a big wars, areas were raised, things like that. And also climate change and weather patterns, right? So how do we adapt to that? We have to bridge those gaps between understanding what people knew from the coastlines, from those traditional practices of handling saltwater inundation, people who had been through or who had set different taro patches, different aquaculture structures, and bringing them into the modern world. So getting basic manuals for agriculture to understand how to treat soil based on a lot of knowledge around the world, and then looking at other sites for upland and dryland taro production, as well as looking at saltwater taro varieties. So these are sort of modern tools that bring sort of the population back in and make them understand that food production and getting staple crops is the only way to develop first world status, as well as our largest resource, which is the marine environment. So getting nursery production up, but looking at areas that have, you know, higher scale, like land-based production models, because the demand was much higher due to tourist populations and things like that. So local action, recycling, community things, looking at the new products that were taking over, which was mainly rice and chicken, and bringing these and seeing if we could produce them, as well as looking at some fish varieties that could be used for the tourist industry and maybe for export. So these are sort of the agroforestry and fisheries traditionally conserved in Palau, and they're still practiced today. So taking those things and understanding how you can expand, you know, these are all sort of things that can be expanded within certain agroforestry models or even agriculture models, as well as aquaculture models. So the idea initially, as opposed to trying to punch out single species for export, is looking at integrative production to sort of skew the balance of trade. Of course, we know that Palau had high imports. It has an economy based on tourism, but getting subsistence production to sort of balance that trade and kind of shift it over, and then slowly move into possibilities of export, but making sure people understand that economy is also what you don't spend. So this was kind of the idea that we had focused on in our work. So as we try to sort of push within the community, is that practice makes perfect. Culture and sustainable development is not just something spoken, it's practiced. So we're hoping that we make sure our Pacific people understand that culture is not just in books, but it's a daily activity that either has to adapt to the current environment or will die. That's all I got.
Thank you so much, Christopher, for sharing that story. I'm pretty sure that there will be some questions around this narrative of yours linked to, let's say, the innovations that could happen and could be scoped out as well. So we'll move on to the third and last speaker for this afternoon session. We have with us a Professor Yasuyuki Ikigami, who is a professor and director at the Institute of Ocean Energy in Saga University. Um, his background, a lot to do with engineering, mechanical engineering for production. He's been working for many decades now, looking at thermal energy systems, and also looking at interdisciplinary research. Um, Beyond just serving as faculty, he specialized a lot in ocean thermal energy systems, all the way from the 1990s, actually, and currently contributes not only to Saga University, but also to the International Energy Agency Ocean Energy Systems from 2003 as the delegate of Japan for the IEC Technical Committee 114. Um, here to speak about leading green transformation of island regions with ocean thermal energy conversion technology, we have Professor Yasu Ikigamen. Prof. Yasu, please.
Yeah, can you hear?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. So, I would like to appreciate giving me a chance to the opportunity. So, I would like to introduce leading green transformation of island region with OTEC, its core in cooperation with ADB. Yeah, first, I would like to explain the OTEC hot news. So first is this press release on at the COP28 by SeadsDoc. SeadsDoc is a small island developing state, over 40 countries authorized by UN. So this press release by Prime Minister of the Tonga is a chair. Seeds are in disparate situation as we have a little space left to deploy land-based solar PV and wind to meet our energy need. The ocean is our resource of last resort. So this press release in detail is here. So 500 million invest requested by Seeds. So in this press release, so one of the best solution for the island countries, so Kumejima model. Kumejima model is one solution to solve the small island region. So this Kumejima model is not only local Japanese name. Kumejima model to global GX model as a one solution. So international famous organization is introduced IDENA, IEA, and UNIDO is introduced Kumejima model as a one solution for the small island. So another Pacific press newspaper, international report, and so on. So last 29 COP29, Japanese government virtual pavilion introduced Saga University and OTEC and Kumejima model. If you're interested, please reach to this address, YouTube. So last year, July, so 18 countries, Pacific leader, Prime Minister of the President together talk in Tokyo. So they hold the Palam 10 meeting. So declare joint action plan, including OTEC, for contribute to island communication around the world. So this action plan introduce OTEC and promote the this technology as a decarbonization technology, as a decarbonized technologies. So after that, Japanese government, the Prime Minister of the Foreign Affairs and JICA aim to the implementation of OTEC, Ocean Thermal Energy Conversion, in the Republic of the Palau with the technical support for Saga University, so this September. So until 2027, so start operations, demonstrate the OTEC in Palau. So another news is Japan Malaysia's summit meeting is held in this January. So to minister the announcement is a technical cooperation is a OTEC. So now is promoting the OTEC technology to especially the Sabah state in Malaysia. So my outline the presentation. What is OTEC? Overview OTEC and related industry, the Kumejima and the Kumejima model, megawatt scale onshore OTEC and industry, Kumejima energy vision. Finally, the OTEC potential for Pacific Island region. So what is OTEC? OTEC is the ocean thermal energy conversion. OTEC uses the temperature difference, warm seawater and cold seawater. Cold seawater in existing the deep seawater. So at least we need the temperature difference between warm seawater, cold seawater over the 20 degrees centigrade. So technology is similar to the fossil power plant, but no, we don't need the fossil energy, gas on the oil, only temperature difference. So using warm seawater, we make a vapor, so rotating the turbine, this vapor go to the condenser. At the condenser, we use cold seawater. So this is circulating, we can continue the generated electricity. So 30 years ago, until 30 years ago, many researcher, governor, and the investor doubt of this technology. But recently, the very achievement, the advanced OTEC technology. So OTEC technology now reached the commercial stage. So because heat exchanger, turbine, or intake pipes or floating system is developed using advanced technologies. So this is Okinawa OTEC demonstration facilities. So this is a 100 kilowatt already connected the local grid. So world first OTEC long demonstration over 5 years. So this technical contribution by our Saga University, optimal design, new high performance heat exchanger, and new cycle. So this is the map of the OTEC potential. OTEC potential is this red lines. This shows the temperature difference. This area is a very huge potential of the OTEC. Almost Pacific Island has a huge potential. So this is a roadmap for the commercial from Japan. First is a 100 kilowatt, next 1 megawatt, 10 megawatt, 100 megawatt. So 100 kilowatt already success. Now but small OTEC is not commercial, not economically. So now we are at least over 1 megawatt. Now in Japan we are promoting 1 megawatt for the commercialized. Later I will explain. So already we are designed for the commercial plant, on-land type and floating type. So OTEC around the world, many activities. So overview OTEC related industry of the Kumejima. Kumejima is a southern Japan, is a very small island. So deep sea oil industry is shrimp and sea grape, cosmetic, desalinated water. So deep sea oil has three characteristics: cold, nutrient rich, and clean. Cold is contributed refrigerator and air conditioning. Nutrient rich is contributed agriculture, aquaculture. Clean is contributed aquaculture. So already in Japan, there's 15 sites in the implementation deep sea water tube. So this onshore OTEC contributed deep sea water industries. OTEC contributed energy security, water security, energy saving, data center, food and economic securities, environment securities. So this is a Kumejima model. Center of is a OTEC. After OTEC used a warm sea oil, cold sea oil, contributed to the coral protect, oyster farming, micro gauge, shrimp, sea grape, cosmetics, so on. This industry is very big as the sugar canes. Before this industry, sugar cane industry is the number one industry in Kumejima. But now twice industries grew up. So shrimp and sea grape, cosmetics, so on. So Kumejima model expanded. So now Kumejima is a 1 megawatt planning. So 1 megawatt planning. So after that, contributed this new business and technology, lithium recovery, desalination, so on. So I want to propose a social implementation onshore ocean water intake for GX of island region and the blue infrastructure by ADB. So this is intake tube is very costly, the whole system. So this is if public organization contributed intake tube as a blue infrastructure project. So this project contributed to many industry, fishery, agriculture, offshore, so on. Already Kumejima now is this model already realized. Some industry pays usage fee, so gets ocean water. So this business is now grew up. So Kumejima Energy Vision. Kumejima, the announcement 2020, 100 renewable energy reached. So this is a plan until 2040. So 1 megawatt first, 1 megawatt OTEC, next 5 megawatt OTEC. Base load is OTEC. OTEC can be base load and solar and batteries. So this is realized, will be realized until 2040. So in Japan is a MOL, Mitsui OSK line, the announcement is a commercialization of the OTEC. So now this is the 100 megawatt OTEC project supported the Ministry of the Japanese Environment. So MOL is now constructed the 200 kilowatt OTEC for the 1 megawatt OTEC. Within this year, we will be tested. So this is a demonstration. So finally, we want to explain the OTEC potential for Pacific Island. As I said, Pacific Island has a huge potential. Potential exceeding the current demand. And if realized the Pacific Island can be exported the energies. So one of the solution and one of the example to promoted the OTEC for the Pacific Island. Republic of the Nauru requested the UN. So under the UN, CTN is an announcement OTEC pre-feasibility study by requested Republic Palau. So Japan team is adopted. So we, Saga University and OECC and Tokyo University have been progressed achievement the Nauru technical pre-feasibility study. Nauru is 40 years ago challenged the OTEC. But this stage is a poor technology. So now is re-challenging the Republic Nauru because if they want to realize 100% renewable energy using solar, so very needed, very land space is needed, very occupied. So, but OTEC is a very, very compact, 100th compact of the 10 megawatt OTEC than solar PV. So, so Republic Palau is Republic Nauru is a requested OTEC. So next stage, they and proposal of the OTEC project. So now watch the GCF fund. So maybe a small fund or medium stand, we want to request it. So if you interested in this report to get the solution for the Pacific Island, please reach to this report. About 200 pages report. This is very effective example. So finally, adapted Kumejima model for GX Pacific Island region. So they require a system approach to the local infrastructure, the enable transition to sustainable energy, water, and food, and catalyze decarbonized and other large-scale commercial developed and reduce the risk, food, energy, and environment. So please join to the public organization. We want to accelerate it and contribute it to Pacific Island. Thank you and arigato.
Thank you so much, Prof. Yasu, for that interesting presentation. Just one quick question from the audience here, looking at OTEC. Is there anything installed already in the small island developing states? And what is the plan for Palau? As we've heard some of that. Prof. Yasu, yeah. Are there any installed in any of the small island developing states beyond Japan?
Yeah. So now Japan is a more advanced stage is a Kumejima model as introduced. Next, another island is we will adapt it now planning.
Okay, so no installed yet, but you're doing some studies. What about Palau in particular? Is there any
Yeah,
OTEC?
Yeah, as I said, OTEC is now many countries are challenging us or installed Korea and China or US and so on. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. So I think yeah, it's nothing yet installed in Palau. I think a lot of the island countries are awaiting the technology to reach certain well, I wouldn't say maturity, but a cost acceptability would be the right way to play that. But I guess we have some questions in the chat, which I would allow our speakers to reply to as well. And we've run out of time already, but looking at maybe, Chris, James, and Prof. Yasu, thank you very much for a very comprehensive look at your different topics. So now in the emerging areas, we also look at cross-sectoral opportunities. So very quickly, maybe just 1 minute each before we end, could I ask you to look at synergies between the topics that you've talked about and how we could work together? I'll start with you, James, and then Chris, and then Prof. Yasu. James, you want to take that? Just 1 minute. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much, Mike. Yeah, and I guess this potentially links into one of the questions as well, which is looking at the impact of plastic pollution on nature and on wildlife, and I guess that also then is feeding into food, and making sure we have healthy production lines, healthy fish and fish stocks off the coasts of countries as well. I think generally the use of satellite data can be a great enabler between different areas. We find that there's applications in lots of different verticals. As mentioned, we've looked at things like aquaculture, but then our technologies are very much painting a wider picture. So if we consider aquaculture, we can be looking at water quality of the water that the fish are subsisting in, be that looking at sewage outfalls or nutrient flows from land. Plastic levels in the waters and microplastic levels are obviously feeding into the health of those stocks as well as kind of general water quality. So certainly satellite data provides an opportunity to get a bird's eye view of a whole lot of different variables and to feed into making, again, some evidence-based decisions around, where we might be.
Yep.
Look, we can protect, particularly, sites which are particularly sensitive around biodiversity, etc. So helping to make good decisions across different sectors and industries.
Thank you, James. Yeah, and someone commented about waste to energy as well, to look at what you can do with this plastic, how to process them, and maybe even recycle or convert them into energy. So thank you for that. Chris, you want to chime in a little bit? Just keep it to 1 minute, please, just to summarize any cross-sectoral opportunities, just based on what we've spoken about today.
Yeah, definitely really exciting stuff with the OTech and modeling with satellite imagery. Some of the stuff we're doing is looking at like inland probes and real-time weather data to feed into the satellite structures. So we're doing some wave runout models and salinity probes to look at how that affects the aquifers, so that we can look at zoning for taro farming and aquaculture facilities, and kind of look at areas that can be zoned for the production. And of course, with OTech, I've been working directly with the Komejime people. Was visited there last year and had a team out there to work on the products prior.
Mhm.
So the idea now is making sure that we're able to look at production, because the energy side is great, but we need to make sure we're focusing on real products in time. So we're working on oysters now, local black lip oysters with the OTech people. They're actually here on island now, and they're back every month, as well as some of the aquaponics components that can come up. So yeah, it's all synergistic, and we're trying to make sure we connect as much as we can so it can be pilots for the rest of the region. And thank you guys all for your help.
Wow. Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, and last but not least, Prof. Yasu. Yeah, not just with OTech, but with Renewable, I think you mentioned that there were synergies. So, any last 1 minute to summarize how you foresee how you see the synergies could happen, especially in small island developing states.
Yeah. So first, I would like to request don't forget Pacific Island has a huge potential, energy potential and water desalination and agriculture potential. But by the way, the first implementation is needed support by international organization, especially intake tube and so on. So if as a small island, no need highway or subway. But if you install the intake tube as a blue social infrastructure, so I think many is risk will be decreased. So I want to contribute to energy, water on the food securities want to decrease and with ADB or international organization. So don't forget they have a solution as a potential. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Yasu. And I think some of our ADB colleagues would like to continue the conversation, especially on pilot projects in Palau and beyond. Yeah. So I guess that's it we have for today on ocean system innovation and marine health, climate resilience, and renewable energy. Seemingly disassociated topics, but actually connected, not just by the ocean, but also by the synergies that could happen in cross-sectoral solutions, integrated solutions towards impact. Um, Again, this has been brought to you by the Emerging Areas Teams, Energy Sector Group, the 10th Knowledge Sharing Series for today. We'll have a link as well on the recording for those who have missed and may want to review. Thank you to our speakers, James, Chris, and Prof. Yasu. And I guess I wish you all a good day. Yeah. Thank you so much for your attendance and participation.
Thank you to all our participants from the Pacific as well. We have from Vanuatu, from Palau, and elsewhere. So thank you for joining. And looking forward to collaborating with you. Thank you, Mike.
Yes, thank you
Our
too.
speakers, thank you for also, staying with us even with the extended time. Congratulations, everyone, to the team. Congratulations. Thank you, James. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Professor Yasu. And looking forward to working with you and collaborating with you on initiatives that we have that will be of interest to you. Thank you so much. Have a great
Cindy,
day.
I didn't have the opportunity to answer your question there because we didn't go to Q&A, but very, very quickly on kind of plastic to waste and
Yes, yes, yes.
and circular economy. So yeah, we're certainly working on projects. For example, with the ocean cleanup in Guatemala, where there's huge volumes of plastic being kind of harvested from rivers, and then this is being used going into building materials and being used, yeah, in a way which it's being responsibly dealt with. This is kind of increasingly interesting because there are models now, plastic credits, which are analogous to carbon credits, which are creating more of a, an interesting marketplace around this as well. And we're certainly looking at, or working with cleanup operators that are looking at that model as a revenue generation model. Waste to energy, we haven't done anything specifically with yet. We do see a lot of kind of burning of plastic when it's washing up, for example, in SIDS in large volumes, and how do you deal with it? So there's a lot of kind of informal burning of plastic, but obviously if it can go into well-structured industries and be used as a resource, that makes a lot of sense as well. So yeah, we're certainly keeping our eyes open for those types of opportunities.
Sounds good.
Thank you, and we're happy to see what if you have a list, for example, or description of some of these projects that you're doing or looking at. We will be happy to also explore potential collaborations with ADP and our private sector also. We want to focus on waste to energy as well, and of course, oceans monitoring. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank
Yes,
you, Cindy. Yeah, be very, very
Thanks,
pleased to
James.
follow
Thanks,
up.
James, for yeah. And
thank you so
yeah, since
much. Take
we can
care.
probably close, yeah, this session. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
thank you very much.